He was 3 seconds away from choosing death when the universe interrupted him. Not with fire. Not with angels. Not with rescue ships screaming from the sky. With a whisper. Breathe for me. Cale Arden had always believed the universe was silent. Cold. Indifferent. He had spent his life proving that alien civilizations once existed. He had searched ruins, decoded signals, chased myths across dead systems. And when humanity finally reached the stars, it found nothing. Empty planets. Dust. Ruins older than memory. Humanity called it the Great Silence. Cale called it proof that hope was dangerous. Now his research vessel, Ustra 9, was falling apart above a planet that should not even have air. Pirate scavengers had attacked without warning. His crew was gone. The escape pod had launched too late. The navigation core was destroyed. He crash-landed alone. The pod hit the surface like a hammer striking stone. Metal screamed. Fire burst. Sand exploded around him in waves of red dust. When the pod finally stopped rolling, Cale was still alive, though he wasn't sure why. His ribs were broken. His oxygen tank leaked. The sky above him held 2 fading suns and no rescue signal. He crawled from the wreckage and lay on the sand. He activated the emergency beacon. It blinked weakly. Estimated rescue time, 184 hours. He had maybe 6. The air was thin. Every breath burned like swallowing knives. He laughed once, short and hollow. All that searching, he whispered. And this is how it ends. He had no dramatic speech left. No final scientific observation. Just exhaustion. He closed his eyes. That was when he heard footsteps. Not mechanical. Not heavy. Soft. Measured. Impossible. The planet was listed as sterile. No atmosphere capable of sustaining life. No biosignatures. No water. The footsteps stopped beside him. A shadow blocked the fading sunlight. Cale forced his eyes open. She stood above him like a mirage. Tall. Human-shaped. But not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the dying light, almost translucent. Dark silver markings traced along her arms like living constellations. Her eyes glowed softly, not bright, not artificial, but deep, like stars reflected in water. Her ears curved slightly backward, elegant and sharp. She knelt. Studied him. And then she leaned close. Breathe for me. Her voice vibrated in his chest, not just his ears. It was soft, calm, but commanding. Cale tried to laugh. Tried to tell himself this was oxygen loss hallucination. But when her hand touched his chest, something changed. Warmth spread through his body. Not healing. Stabilizing. His lungs expanded despite the pain. His heart steadied. He inhaled sharply. Air flooded in, easier this time. He stared at her. You're not real, he muttered. She tilted her head slightly, curious. You are fragile, she replied gently. But you are real. Darkness swallowed him then. Not death. Sleep. When Cale woke, he expected sand. Instead, he saw light moving across stone walls. Soft blue patterns glowed like living veins beneath the rock surface. The air was cool. Clean. He tried to sit up and felt firm pressure against his torso. Bands of woven material wrapped his ribs. They adjusted as he breathed. Alive. He was alive. You wake with noise, the same voice said calmly. He turned his head. She stood near an opening in the wall where distant desert light filtered in. You saved me, he said slowly. I prevented your ending, she corrected. He studied her more carefully now. She wore fabric that seemed grown rather than sewn. It shifted colors faintly as she moved. Who are you? He asked. She paused, considering the question. In your language, the closest sound would be Lyri. Lyri, he repeated carefully. I'm Cale. I know. He blinked. How? You speak in your sleep. That embarrassed him more than it should have. My ship, he asked quickly. Did anyone else survive? She looked toward the opening. No. The word was soft, but absolute. Silence stretched between them. Grief pressed against his chest heavier than the bandages. They attacked us, he whispered. Human pirates. We finally reach the stars, and we still find ways to destroy each other. Lyrie watched him closely. Your species is divided, she said. Yes, he replied bitterly. Very. And yet, she continued, you fight very hard to live. He gave a weak smile. Not hard enough. You chose to stop breathing. That hit harder than any injury. I was dying. You surrendered before the end. He looked away. Maybe I was tired, he said quietly. Lyrie stepped closer. My people have watched yours, she said. His head snapped up. Watched. For many of your generations. Cold realization crept into his mind. You're saying we weren't alone. No. Then why didn't you contact us? Her eyes dimmed slightly. Because you destroy what you fear. Cale opened his mouth, then closed it. She wasn't wrong. Human history was proof of that. We observe developing civilizations, Lyrie continued. Most fade. Some collapse by war. Some by their own technology. And us? Cale asked. She stepped closer again. Her gaze intense now. You are different. He almost laughed at that. We fight each other constantly. Yes, she agreed. But you also create constantly. She gestured toward the glowing walls. These structures are grown from biomineral organisms. They respond to thought patterns. They adapt. Cale stared. You're saying this cave is alive? In a sense. His scientific mind ignited despite the pain. This planet was marked dead. You scan surfaces, she said calmly. You do not listen deeply. That stung, because it was true. Suddenly, a low vibration shook the chamber. Lyrie froze. Her eyes shifted toward the desert. What is that? Cale asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she moved toward the opening and looked out. After a moment, she spoke, voice steady but serious. Your beacon has done its work. Relief flooded him. Rescue. No, she said. And then she looked back at him. Others heard it first. A shadow crossed the distant horizon. Ships. Multiple. Not human design. Sharp angles. Dark hulls. Fast. Cale's heart pounded. Pirates. No. Her expression hardened. Hunters. Cale forced himself upright despite the pain. Then we need to hide. Lyrie looked at him carefully. There is no hiding from them. Then we fight, he said. She studied this fragile, injured human who could barely stand. You cannot even walk. Cale looked toward the sky where the ships grew larger. He swallowed. You said my species is different. Yes. Then maybe it's time you see why. The chamber vibrated again. Dust fell from the ceiling. The hunters were descending. Lyrie's glowing markings brightened faintly. You would defend a world you just discovered. Cale met her eyes. No, he said firmly. I would defend the idea that it shouldn't end here. For a long moment, Lyrie said nothing. Then, slowly, she smiled. Good, she whispered. Outside, the first enemy ship pierced the clouds. And for the first time in centuries, the silent planet prepared for war. The sky split open with fire. The first hunter ship tore through the thin clouds like a blade through cloth. Its hull was black and curved, shaped like a predator diving for prey. Smaller ships followed behind it, moving in tight formation. They did not hesitate. They did not scan politely. They came with certainty. Cale forced himself to stand. Pain shot through his ribs like lightning, but he stayed upright. Who are they? He asked. Lyrie's glowing markings brightened along her arms. They are called the Virex Dominion, she said quietly. They consume developing civilizations. Consume? Cale asked. They strip worlds of knowledge, resources, and biological potential. If a species shows unusual growth or adaptability, they remove it. Cale stared at her. Remove it? They do not like surprises. The first shockwave hit seconds later. The ground trembled as a scanning pulse washed across the desert. Sand lifted into the air and shimmered blue for a brief second before falling again. They're mapping the planet, Cale muttered. Yes, Lyrie replied. And they have detected you. He exhaled slowly. Of course they have. Another pulse followed. Stronger this time. The glowing walls around them flickered. Lyrie placed her hand against the stone. The patterns pulsed in response. They sense advanced biostructures, she whispered. They will not leave. Cale looked toward the entrance. Dark shapes were descending rapidly now. You said you've watched humanity for generations, he said. Did you warn anyone about this? No. Why not? She turned toward him. Because until today, we were not certain you would survive yourselves. That hit hard, but he understood. Human history was filled with war, division, greed. Even now, pirates had destroyed his ship. Fair enough, he said. But we're still here. Yes, she said softly. You are. The hunter ships began landing across the desert. Tall mechanical walkers unfolded from their hulls like metal insects. Their bodies glowed red at the joints. Cale's mind shifted into survival mode. How many? 3 main carriers. 12 escorts. He nodded slowly. That's not an invasion, he said. That's a surgical strike. Lyrie looked at him carefully. You understand them quickly. Cale gave a tight smile. Humans invented surgical strikes. Another tremor shook the chamber. This structure will not withstand direct bombardment, Lyrie said. We must retreat deeper. Cale shook his head. No. Her eyes narrowed slightly. No. If we hide, they'll scan until they find you. They're too advanced. You said they target potential threats. Yes. Then let's give them one. She studied him in silence. You are injured. Outnumbered. Outmatched. Probably, he admitted. But humans specialize in fighting battles we shouldn't win. He stepped toward the glowing wall. You said this planet is alive in a way. Yes. It listens. Yes. Can it transmit signals? She hesitated. In theory. Cale's mind raced. What kind of energy output does this biomineral network generate? It channels geothermal flows and electromagnetic currents beneath the crust. He grinned despite the pain. Perfect. Lyrie tilted her head. You have an idea. I have a very human habit, he replied. When we can't win with strength, we win with creativity. Outside, the first hunter-walker fired a scanning beam toward the mountainside. The impact shook dust loose from the ceiling. They are beginning excavation, Lyrie said. Good, Cale replied. She blinked. Good. Yes. That means they still think this is just a resource site. He turned toward her. I need access to the core of this network. That is forbidden. So is extinction, he shot back. Another explosion rocked the chamber. Time was running out. Lyrie searched his face. You truly believe you can outthink them? No, he said honestly. But I believe we can confuse them. That seemed to interest her. Explain. Cale moved carefully, leaning against the wall for support. The Virex eliminate threats early, right? Yes. They analyze patterns, probabilities, long-term growth potential. Yes. Then let's give them a pattern they've never seen. Outside, the hunters deployed more walkers. Metallic drilling arms slammed into the mountain surface. Lyrie led Cale deeper into the structure. They entered a vast chamber where glowing roots of light ran across the walls and ceiling like veins in a living heart. "This is the central node," she said. Kale stared in awe. "Beautiful," he whispered. "No species has ever seen this and lived," Lyrie said quietly. He looked at her. "Then let's make history." He knelt beside a cluster of pulsing light. "Can this network amplify signals?" "Yes." "Across orbit?" "Yes." He smiled. "Then we're about to introduce the Virex Dominion to something terrifying." Lyrie watched him carefully. "And what is that?" Kale's eyes hardened. "Human unpredictability." He pulled his damaged datapad from his belt. The screen flickered weakly. "Come on," he muttered. It powered on. He began typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" Lyrie asked. "Uploading a signal." "To whom?" "Everyone." Her eyes widened slightly. "You would reveal this planet to your entire species." "Not exactly." He finished coding. The signal was simple, but brilliant. Instead of a distress call, it broadcast a message in multiple mathematical languages. Not coordinates. Not please. A challenge. A complex evolving algorithm that only adaptive intelligence could decode fully. To the Virex scanners, it would look like something else entirely. "What does it say?" Lyrie asked. Kale looked up. "It says, 'We know you're watching.'" He connected the pad to the biomineral core. The chamber brightened instantly. Energy surged through the glowing veins. Outside, hunter ships paused. Their scanning beams shifted direction. "They detected it," Lyrie whispered. "Good," Kale replied. In orbit, Virex command vessels began recalculating. Their models predicted passive civilizations. Defensive ones. Aggressive ones. But not this. The signal evolved every few seconds, adapting to their scans in real time. It suggested hidden fleets, concealed weapons, distributed intelligence across the planet. None of it was true. But the Virex did not know that. "They are hesitating," Lyrie said slowly. Kale exhaled. "Predators don't like prey that looks back." Minutes passed. The walkers stopped drilling. Hunter ships adjusted altitude. In orbit, their calculations shifted from harvest to risk. Finally, the lead carrier powered its engines. Lyrie stepped closer to the entrance. "They are withdrawing." Kale sagged in relief. "Good." But then one final ship remained. Smaller. Sleeker. It did not retreat. Instead, it descended directly toward the mountain. Lyrie's markings flared brightly. "They send a probe." Kale clenched his jaw. "Of course they do." The smaller craft hovered outside the entrance. A beam of white light shot down, and from it stepped a tall armored figure. Not mechanical. Alive. The Virex had come to investigate personally. Kale swallowed. "Okay," he said quietly. "New plan." Lyrie looked at him. "You are out of strength." He met her glowing eyes. "Yeah," he admitted. "But humans are never out of ideas." The armored figure began walking toward the entrance. Slow. Confident. Kale took a steady breath. "Let's show them what happens," he said softly, "when humanity refuses to disappear." The Virex envoy did not rush. It walked into the mountain as if it already owned the future. Tall. Armored. Smooth black plating wrapped around a body that moved with unnatural precision. Its helmet reflected the glowing walls in distorted fragments. No visible weapons. That was worse. It meant it did not expect resistance. Kale stood. Barely. His ribs screamed in protest. His vision flickered at the edges. But he stayed upright. Lyrie stood beside him, silent, radiant markings glowing brighter than before. The Virex stopped 10 meters away. Its voice came not from a mouth, but from the air itself, translated instantly by Kale's datapad. "Unregistered civilization detected. Signal irregular. Explain." No anger. No curiosity. Just calculation. Kale swallowed. We were going to ask you the same thing, he replied. Lyrie glanced at him briefly, surprised at his boldness. The Virex tilted its head slightly. You are not native to this world. No, Kale admitted. But neither are you. Silence. The glowing walls pulsed gently around them. You transmitted a deception, the Virex continued. Your signal suggests distributed planetary defense capability. Our scans detect no such fleet. Kale gave a small shrug. Maybe you're not scanning deeply enough. Lyrie felt the faint tremor in his body. He was pushing past his limits. The Virex took one slow step forward. Your species displays accelerated technological growth. High aggression. High creativity. High unpredictability. Kale smiled faintly. Thank you. It is not praise. Depends on perspective. The Virex turned its helmet slightly toward Lyrie. Indigenous species. You conceal yourselves poorly. Lyrie did not step back. We were never hiding, she said calmly. We were observing. Your species shows low expansion behavior. Minimal threat. Kale frowned. Low expansion. Yes. You do not colonize aggressively. You do not harvest neighboring systems. Lyrie's voice remained steady. We learned long ago that survival does not require domination. The Virex paused. This philosophy is inefficient. And yet, Kale said quietly, you're the ones hesitating. The air felt heavier. The Virex recalculated. Your broadcast altered our probability models. It implies coordinated human presence. Kale lifted his chin. Humans are everywhere, he said. You attack one of us, you don't just fight a planet. You fight an idea. The Virex studied him. Clarify. Kale's mind moved quickly. You hunt species before they grow strong. You eliminate risk early. Smart strategy. Yes. But humanity doesn't grow in straight lines, Kale continued. We grow in chaos. You can't predict chaos. The glowing walls brightened slightly, as if listening. You attacked my ship, Kale went on. You think we're divided? Yes, we are. We fight each other. We argue. We make mistakes. The Virex remained still. But when something bigger threatens us, Kale said, voice growing firmer, we unite fast. That part was not entirely proven. But it could be. Lyrie looked at him with quiet understanding. He was not just defending himself. He was defending potential. The Virex processed silently. Our projections indicate a 72% probability that your species will self-destruct within 3 centuries. Kale gave a short laugh. Yeah. We've been hearing that about ourselves for thousands of years. The Virex paused. Explain resilience. Kale took a slow breath. Resilience is building again after burning everything down. It's surviving plagues. Wars. Collapse. It's making art in ruins and science in the middle of disasters. He looked directly at the black visor. You see instability. We see adaptation. Silence filled the chamber. The biomineral network hummed softly. The Virex spoke again. You broadcasted deception to protect this world. Yes. You risked extinction. Yes. You are injured. Physically inferior. Outnumbered. Yes. And yet you confront. Kale smiled faintly. Yeah. That's kind of our thing. Lyrie stepped forward slightly. You remove species that surprise you, she said calmly. Humanity is surprise. The Virex remained motionless for several long seconds. Then the glow in its armor shifted. Our doctrine eliminates uncertain variables. Kale's heart pounded. Here it comes. But uncertainty also generates innovation, the Virex continued. Your signal demonstrated rapid cognitive adaptation under stress. Kale blinked. That's good. The Virex turned slightly, as if receiving distant communication from orbit. The Dominion does not eliminate assets that may become useful. Kale felt a cautious spark of hope. Useful how? He asked. Your species may be monitored rather than harvested. Lyrie's eyes narrowed. Monitored? Yes. If your growth trajectory confirms projected self-destruction, elimination remains optimal. If adaptation stabilizes, alliance probability increases. Kale let out a slow breath. So we're on probation. Correct. He almost laughed. Story of our existence. The Virex turned toward the entrance. Your deception prevented immediate cleansing. However, understand this, the Dominion does not fear strength. It fears unpredictability. Kale's eyes sharpened. Then you should definitely be afraid. For the first time, there was the faintest pause in the Virex's response time. Noted. It stepped backward into the white beam of light. Within seconds, the smaller ship lifted off. Moments later, the carriers in orbit ignited engines. One by one, they disappeared into the sky. Silence returned to the desert. Kale's knees finally gave out. Lyrie caught him before he hit the ground. You stood too long, she said softly. Worth it, he muttered. The glowing walls dimmed to a calm rhythm. They are gone, Lyrie whispered. For now, Kale replied. She helped him sit against the stone. You changed their decision, she said. No, he corrected gently. We did. Lyrie studied him. Your species is fragile. Very. Divided. Constantly. Loud. He smiled. Extremely. She tilted her head. And yet, you refuse to end. Kale looked toward the opening where the stars had begun to appear again. We've been trying to end ourselves for centuries, he said quietly. Hasn't worked yet. Lyrie sat beside him. My people feared your kind. Fair. But now, she continued, I see something else. What? She looked at him, not as a specimen, not as a variable, as possibility. You fall, she said softly, but you stand again. Kale closed his eyes briefly. That's humanity. Outside, the desert winds moved gently across the sand. Somewhere far above, the Virex ships recalculated new models of a species they no longer understood. Kale looked at Lyrie. So, he said carefully, what happens now? She considered the horizon. Now, she replied, we begin something neither of our species predicted. He raised an eyebrow. Cooperation. Yes. And if the Dominion comes back? Her glowing markings shimmered brighter. Then they will not face a divided world. Kale smiled slowly. They'll face humans. Lyrie nodded once. And something new. In the quiet chamber beneath a once silent planet, a fragile human and an ancient alien sat side by side, not as prey, not as observers, but as partners. The universe had whispered once, and humanity had chosen to breathe.